Hey there folks, as you can tell it's finally fall. It took a while to get here this year, but we got some color on the leaves behind me and I got my flannel on because it's a little cool outside, which means it's time to break out the dry suits for winter kayak fishing season. And you know, I've talked at length about dry suits in terms of what to look for and comparing some of the different brands and models. But what I haven't talked about is footwear while wearing your dry suit. So most dry suits on the market that I've recommended just come with some sort of fabric sock, and you've got to wear some sort of boot or footwear to protect this material, but also keep your feet warm. So I thought I'd go over some of the boots that I use when I'm kayak fishing in my dry suit. So how I'm going to break this down, I'm going to break this down into the boots or booties that I wear for 3 different temperature gradients. The first is going to be what I wear when it's relatively mild. So this is like when I'm fishing on the coast in the summertime, anything above 50 degrees essentially, those end of the shoulder seasons, or perhaps cold water fishing during the summertime. So the first is going to be the NRS paddling booties, and you can see here it's a neoprene 3mm booty, so it's got a pretty minimal amount of insulation. It has a zipper here on the side, so you can pull it on and off over your dry suit. Now I always size up one size to help me get this on over my sock and whatever insulating socks I wear underneath. I usually wear some really nice plush merino wool socks in the winter time, and then I'll use thinner wool socks as I get into the summer. So it has a zipper there, and these zippers do get bound up and gummed up a little bit, so you guys got to keep these clean. I use an old toothbrush, and then I'll put some wax on there to help lubricate them. But what I like about the NRS booty is, again, it's got that 3mm, so it's not super hot, so my feet aren't getting very sweaty and hot. It has a protective rubber coating on the toe and on the heel, and then it's got a little bit of grip here on the bottom, but it also helps protect my feet from sharp rocks or fish, spiny rays and things like that. These are fairly affordable, in the mid $60 range, and they're really my choice of footwear when I'm fishing in the summertime on the coast, and the water temps are cold, but the air temps are not. Now, if you're somebody who struggles with your feet getting cold even during those mild seasons, like my wife, she has a little bit poor circulation in her feet. I got her these Cressy diving boots. Now the reason I like the Cressy diving booties is that you can size up from 3, 5, or 7mm neoprene if you need something with a little bit more insulation capabilities. These booties can do it, and they're a little bit less expensive too, so right around $45 to $50 for the Cressys. So next up is the boot that I use for most of my kayak fishing dry suit expeditions, which is the NRS boundary boot. Now I'll use this for temperatures anywhere from 38 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is sort of my classic winter fishing boot that will get me through all but the coldest months, but it also really covers those shoulder seasons really well too, and those long cool seasons on the coast and Puget Sound. What's really nice about this boot is it's very tall and it's waterproof, so I can wade out, get in my kayak and launch without even getting my booties or boots wet. It keeps my feet dry. It's very easy to get in and out of, just because it has this really wide access point for your foot to slide into, and then you can cinch it down here using this strap. You can also cinch it down here using this flexible lace system right here. Like their paddling booty, it has a protected toe box and heel, and it's got pretty decent grip too for getting around on those algae covered ramps and rocks. It even does okay on a little bit of light ice or frost. It's a little bit heavier neoprene at 5mm thickness all the way from the calf down through, and then it has a 7mm neoprene in the insole to add a little bit of extra insulation at the bottom of your foot down around the toes. It also gives it some nice cushion too when you're walking around in them. Definitely one of my favorite boots. Retails for about $100. I've had this pair for several years, and it's done a really great job. It's also great when it's not dry suit season, but it's still cool enough that I don't want to get my feet wet when I'm waiting out to get into the kayak and launch. So like in the fall and spring when we're transitioning into away from dry suit season, I like to wear this too, just over a light pair of socks and my pants, and it keeps my feet dry getting in and out of the kayak. Okay, the last boot I'm going to talk about is my sort of extreme winter boot. So this is where we're talking like 38 degrees and colder for a high. So, you know, you can expect most of the day is going to be at or near freezing temperatures. And this is the Corker Polar Vortex boot. Now, this is probably the most expensive boot that I use. It's rated to negative 40 degrees, but it also sets you back about $230. So it's a pretty spendy boot. It is waterproof. It's not quite as tall as the neoprene boundary boots, but it will keep your feet dry, and it's deep enough that it'll let me get out and push my kayak off and get into it while keeping my feet dry to start the day off, which just helps to keep your feet warm. So it's completely sealed all the way around. It uses a BOA system to cinch down these cables here on the front of the boot, which is really nice, especially for, not so much for putting it on because it's pretty easy to tighten down laces and such, but for releasing at the end of the day, it's really nice to be able to pop that out, push forward, and then be able to slide your foot out. Again, you're going to size up one size from your normal size in order to get a dry suit sock to fit in here along with your other sock layers. Now what really makes this boot warm is it uses 600 grams of Thinsulate 3M material embedded in this boot as insulation, so that traps that layer of air in there and keeps your feet warm. These are actually designed more for the snowmobiling recreation industry than they are for the kayak fishing industry, but they keep you extremely warm. You can actually get one that has twice as much Thinsulate that's rated to negative 60, but I think that one would actually be pretty warm unless your feet tend to get extremely cold. My feet stay really toasty in this boot. I started experimenting with these last year at the end of walleye season. I was going out, it was 28, 29 degrees, and they were keeping my feet ultra warm. This is an extremely durable boot with a reinforced toe and heel. It's a very stiff boot. And like all the Corker's boots, it has the replaceable or changeable soles. So they have this sole here, which just has rubber grips, but I also bought one that has ice cleats on it, and it's a little bit flatter, and that's great for when I'm at the boat ramps and you get those icy boat ramps. They can be really sketchy. That allowed me to move around on the rocks and on the ice, and I wasn't slipping nearly as badly, so it made it safer too when I was loading and unloading the kayak. When there was a little bit of ice on the boat ramps, having those ice cleats really made a big difference, and I didn't notice any major issues with it still functioning well on the flat pedals that I'm using on my Old Town Salty. Prior to using these Corkers, I was using the Muck Arctic Extreme Ice boots. These are really warm, very heavy neoprene boot, waterproof up to your calf, but they weigh almost 3 pounds a pop, so I was a little bit worried about them adding an excessive amount of weight to my foot, especially if they took in water, which they would very easily do because of the sort of open calf design. These weigh closer to about 2 pounds a pop, and they cinch down a little bit tighter because of this BOA system. And I think they're going to be a little bit safer in terms of self-rescue. I haven't practiced with either of them because I only wear them in the extreme situations, which is probably a bad on my part. But I feel like having a little bit less weight on my foot will help me out. All right, I'll put links to all of these boots below in the description, so if you want to shop for them there, it really helps out this channel. If you have any questions about footwear for your kayak fishing dry suit, just let me know and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, I'll see you out there on the water. Just remember, fish smarter, not harder. Bye, guys.